This video is going to show you 3 ways that enlightened people instantly manifest. I'm going to share with you some of the realizations they have that allow them to create what they want more quickly than ever. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 ways that enlightened people are able to instantly manifest. Now, of course, at a certain level, this is a paradox because when you get to the point of enlightenment, when you get to that vibrational state of consciousness, you don't necessarily need to instantly manifest anything because you already feel so whole and complete, and you realize a couple things about the world that I'm going to share with you that make it so much easier in the process because there's not so much importance and so much validity giving to the material type things. So I thought I'd have fun with it in this video and just share with you some of the perspectives and ways that you can maybe apply it in your life. I've had a couple people ask questions about enlightenment and manifestation, and while I'm not claiming to be enlightened by any means, I am just talking about it from the states of consciousness point of view and kind of in a fun way that we can apply. So let's see. The first part of this has to do with understanding that what we experience in our life is an illusion. Now what I mean by this is that this is something that enlightened people come to be aware of, is the idea that everything we experience that we think is so real, that we give so much importance and meaning to, is inherently neutral. And that when we get to that state of consciousness, when we look around, we see things in a completely new light. Now, of course, from a certain perspective, you could say that everything is real because the experience of things are real. But when you get to that place of understanding it, you start to see that in a way, life is kind of like a video game. Now, that's a bad analogy because a lot of times people associate a video game with being something that has no meaning whatsoever. But in a certain way, it's the meaning that we give it. And part of the purpose of life, I believe, is to come into life and to remember, to literally remember who we are in a greater sense. Because we forget this when we come into our life experience. Because one of the purposes of life is to remember who we are. It wouldn't be as fun. Now, of course, it would be less painful, but it wouldn't be as fun if we came into it knowing that it's a complete illusion. That in a way, it's kind of like the Matrix or something like that. But I think it's actually very empowering because there is actually, this is who we think we are, and this is what we think there is in the world or just in reality in general. But this is the cool thing. There is actually much, much more that we are just unaware of because of our state of consciousness. When we become aware of it, to sometimes challenging certain beliefs that we have, it can be a little bit scary. But at a grander scheme of things, we realize that we are immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences. Enlightened people have this level of understanding that this is an illusion. And because of that, they are able to more likely create what they want because they're not giving so much importance to the things in their life, and because they already feel 100% whole and complete. So they're not doing things from a place of lack. You know, when you hear of certain enlightened people that are able to create certain synchronicities in their life, then what happens is you see that what they're able to do is, in a way, get into that energy state, that vibration, and things are literally just given to them. But the paradox, of course, is that they don't need it. Many times they don't even want it. And some people would go as far as to say that they're not really enlightened if they do want anything material. However, I think that it's not a this or this, it can be a this and this. There can be enlightened people that do enjoy parts of life in general. Maybe they do prefer to do certain things. You know, I know somebody like Sadhguru, for example. He loves to ride motorcycles. That's not something you normally see what you think of a yogi or somebody that's enlightened do. But nonetheless, doesn't mean he's not enlightened all because he likes to drive a motorcycle. Now, he probably doesn't need to drive the motorcycle, but he enjoys to, so why not do it? So that's something that the enlightened person will know. Maybe not say, but that's why they're able to instantly manifest in a much more powerful way. So the second part of this, second things enlightened people know that they may not say that help them to manifest what they want, has to do with their vibrational state of consciousness. So what I'll do real quick is I'll show that scale that I've showed many times before, the power versus force scale of consciousness. And on this scale, what you'll see is that as you move up the vibrational layers, you'll see at the bottom, you'll see negative emotions. emotions that separate us from who we are. You'll see emotions such as shame, such as fear, such as guilt. Eventually you'll see anger. Anger is a little bit more powerful because that's when you start to take your power back. Whereas in the bottom emotions, you don't even feel worthy of being angry or being worthy of having those negative emotions. And then what happens is you eventually move into willingness, neutrality, then eventually you get to love. And then when you're in that love vibration, which is an unconditional love, you eventually get to peace and enlightenment. And enlightenment, that's with the understanding of who you are at a deeper level, but not really you. It's understanding that there really is no separation between you and anybody else. At this level of consciousness, you become aware that the density within which you perceive of is actually just you. So I've heard many people that are enlightened, like even like Sadhguru, and he talks about how when he became enlightened, he was at the top of a hill, he was looking out, and he couldn't find where he started and where he began. He couldn't find where his skin, where he was and what the world was. Everything he realized was him. This is a state of consciousness that when you get to, you realize everything you experience in your life is a reflection of you. This is a very literal type thing. Normally you think that's just a metaphor, you know, what you put out is what you get back, so everything just looks like, you know, but that's just the surface level. At the deepest level, when you get to that level of consciousness, you realize everything is a reflection of you. And I don't mean you, the ego, I mean you, the larger consciousness. You start to live from that point of view. Now on this scale, you'll notice that there are different vibrations. These emotions are different vibrations. When you get to unconditional love, you start to create what you want in a very powerful way. However, normally what happens is when you get past the idea of the 400s, you see the 4 to 500s, reason to love, reason, the consciousness of reason to the consciousness of love. A lot of times after about the calibration about 540 and above, many times you do lose the complete desire to manifest things, to manifest material things. Because what on the outside can make you happier when you already feel 10 out of 10 on the inside? What do you need on the outside to make you happy when you're just feeling so whole and complete all the time? So that's the understanding that I think you can help you understand, that if you start to raise your level of consciousness, you will start to create in a much more powerful way, but you might not actually even need to go all the way up to enlightenment to get to that state of consciousness. You may just need to get to reasoning and love. I believe what's happening on the planet right now is more people are waking up to who they are, and they're starting to raise their vibrational state of consciousness from maybe the 3 to 400s to about the 4 to 500s, which means they're still in the mind, the intellect and the power of the mind. However, when they begin to merge the mind with the heart, that's where the power really begins to manifest. Things really begin to happen in a very powerful way. So you'll see that this towards the top, towards you see enlightenment, that's where things happen instantly. That's where they don't really need it to happen, but it does happen. And that's where they're really able to just be who they are and understand that they are everything and everything is them. So it's a much deeper state of consciousness, but nonetheless, when we get to that state, we may not really even materialistically want anything anyways. But nonetheless, I think raising our level of consciousness will help us to do that. Now, what I did is I originally, if you look at the scale of consciousness, I used to feel at about a 3 to a 4 out of 10. 10 feeling amazing. Now, I'm not saying that I'm enlightened. I'm not even using this scale to explain what I'm about to tell you, because I'm not saying that I am enlightened. What I am saying, though, is on a scale of 1 to 10, I was feeling a majority of the time like I was about a 3 or a 4. Then what happened is I learned how to observe my thoughts. I learned certain perspectives that then allowed me to go from a 3 to a 4 to a 7 or an 8 out of 10. I felt like I was high all the time. I didn't do any drugs. I just felt really good. And I thought the feeling was going to go away. So I was wondering, is this feeling going to go away? But it never did. It became my natural set point. So what I did is I created a free meditation that shows you how to do what I did years ago. It shows you how to raise your vibrational set point so that you start to feel better, you start to feel more like who you're meant to be, and you start to create from this higher paradigm. Things become so much easier when you raise your vibration and when you come at it from a new level of consciousness. Most people take action, and most people use the law of attraction from a feeling of lack, from a feeling of I want to get over there because over there is better than over here, or I want that over there to come here because then I will feel better. That's going about it backwards. Instead, learn how to raise your vibration, and then those things will come easier than ever. So the third thing that enlightened people know, but may not say when it comes to instant manifestation, has to do with understanding detachment. Now, this is something that we may learn. This is something that we may have heard of before. But the enlightened person truly is detached. Detached from outcome. Detached from the action they may take. Detached from the thoughts that they are thinking. And this is why there is so much power underneath what they do. Now, there's something I talked about before called pure intention. Now, the idea is that if I were to ask you right now to intend that you create, let's say, $100,000 in the next month, and if you've never done that before, you probably think that that is something that's very hard to do. If you don't currently have that as your reality, then you may say, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And then if we made it really important that you did, maybe there was some prize or something was taken away, and unless you did it, then you would get that thing back. Then all of a sudden you give it so much excess meaning, excess importance. And anything that you make more important than it has to be, you immediately distance yourself from it. You make it much more harder for you to actually accomplish it. Now let's look at this. If there was something on the ground, it's like, the intention to go pick that up on the ground. Maybe it's a nickel. There's no resistance around picking a nickel up off the ground because it's just a nickel. Because we don't doubt whether we can bend down and pick it up. We can just bend down, pick it up, pure intention. If you were to go to the newspaper stand and get a newspaper, I know it's an outdated analogy, but if you were to go there, get the newspaper, pick it up, there's no excess meaning, excess importance. It just is. It's a pure intention. In the same way, the way the enlightened person is able to create, instantly, has to do with being able to have that pure intention towards everything. To be able to have that neutrality towards everything. And because they're not giving anything excess meaning, excess importance, guess what? Things happen more easily than ever because it's just natural for them to do that. And the detachment comes from the realization that nothing out there is going to make them in here, feel even better. So what they first do is they first focus on their state of being. But by the time they are enlightened, most likely they are majority in that state of being, and that is their level of consciousness. So this is about that awareness, that understanding, that detachment is where all the power is. Now this is a paradox, because many people are afraid to get rid of their attachment, because if they do, is that giving up? That's not giving up. That's having the awareness of who you really are at a greater level. You are that which you seek. What you are looking for out there, the manifestations you think will make you feel better, will not actually make you feel better. It's just you giving yourself permission to say, that's here in my life now. Now I can release the serotonin and dopamine. But think about how funny that is, because the whole time you could have released that serotonin and dopamine by lowering the bar of expectation of what it means for you to be happy. People that are enlightened already have that level of happiness because even the smallest things make them feel happy. You've heard of maybe people talking about enlightenment, talking about they just look out into the valley and they just start crying in happiness and thinking it's so beautiful. Well, that's because they've lowered the bar of what it means or what it takes for it to be happy. They may have not had to do this consciously. That in that state of awareness, everything will appear as a miracle. You'll look out at an ocean and just realize that it's so divine. It's so amazing. And in the same way, that starts to apply towards everything. Because anything that comes into life is just one expression. It's just something to be experienced, but it's not something to be attached to. It's not something to give too much meaning to. But at the same time, it's just beautiful for what it is. So one thing you could do is start to lower the bar of what it takes for you to be happy. You see, we have these roles in our mind. I'll be happy when X, Y, Z, and Z happens, whatever. And what we do is we say that when all those things line up, then I can be happy. Instead, be happy for being you right now. Be happy you're on the journey. Be happy you're aware of what you want to experience in your life. Be happy that you are having a life experience right now, and you can come and start to understand more and more of who you are. And the more you start to tap into that, guess what? That becomes your natural state of being. That wholeness starts to literally sponge out everywhere. It starts to expand out. And that will affect everyone around you. That will affect your environment. And that will also affect what you experience in your life. So that detachment will help you to have that kind of experience. So remember, with all this process, with all enlightenment of what we know about it, we can say and understand that enlightened people, some things they know that they may not share, is that the world within we experience, the world within which we experience, is at a certain level an illusion. that we are immortal spiritual beings having temporary human experiences, that we may have forgotten who we are at a deeper level. And that's one of the beautiful things about enlightenment, is they say that enlightenment isn't something you attain. It's something you already are. It's a realization. We spend our whole lives trying to become enlightened, trying to seek something, when really it's natural. It's just more about letting go of perspectives, of social conditioning, of caring what people think, letting go of who we are not. And then when we get to that paradigm, we realize that we are everything, and that everything is us, not the ego, the larger state of consciousness. The second thing enlightened people know is their vibrational state of consciousness. They feel that's who they are. They may not say, oh, I know that scale of consciousness, but they do, in essence, know that they are not their lower emotions. They know who they are, and they exist in that higher vibrational state of consciousness. They may not necessarily desire things, and that's when we get to the third one, which is detachment. They are detached from their thoughts. They are detached from the outcome. They are detached from anything that would bring them down, and they are more so already whole and complete, and because of that, they create things in a very quick manner. So I hope that you can apply these in your life, understand how you could start to raise your level of consciousness to create from a much more higher point of view. And another thing I'll be doing is I'll be doing live Q&As on Instagram, so I'm going to go ahead and link my Instagram below as well. And if you want to have more of an interaction with me, if you want to ask me questions, go ahead and follow me there, and we'll have more of a live type dialogue. So other than that, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you guys liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit that little notification here so that you can see the daily vids that I do. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.